Jurgen Klopp declared Dr. Football, and he's now on the case. MLS introduces cash for trades, and what is the League for Clubs? That and much, much more here on Wednesday's Morning Kickaround. Good morning and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kickaround, working towards becoming the new home of the American soccer conversation, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm Robert Kerr, up from the lower leagues, happy to be joined by host in the afternoon on Sirius XM, Mr. Jason Davis. How you feeling?
I'm doing good, Rob. Ready for this. Two very good guests coming up on today's show to help us understand some things in American soccer. I like that we are covering many levels of the game. And we're going to talk a little bit about some things that are going on in Europe. We're obviously going to talk about the cash for player trades market that MLS has instituted. Charles Boehm is going to help us figure that out. And then Dennis Crowley, who has a lower division club, has been around high-level amateur football for a number of years in America, and is now part of a new league. Got a new league going, Rob.
The League for Clubs. So a very exciting episode on the way. We have Charles Boehm and Dennis Crowley, so can't wait to get to them. I've got my Midwestern uniform on, my warmest possible shirt. What you wearing today?
I'm wearing a jersey of Atlantic City FC, which coincidentally is one of the founding clubs for the League for Clubs. So I do not have, when Dennis comes on, I'll have to say my apologies. I don't have a Kingston Stockade jersey to wear, but I do have Atlantic City FC, and they are part of the story of the League for Clubs. So I'm excited to kind of talk about that and rep the club that sent me this jersey a number of years ago.
I'm sure you'll be quick to remind them that you don't have a Kingston Stockade jersey, right?
It may come up. I'm going to apologize, but perhaps it'll also be a hint. I don't know. I could always look. I could just buy one. I could just buy a Kingston Stockade shirt. I'm not asking for handouts over here. I have enough. There's a whole rack of shirts next to me. I'm not begging for more.
Before we get into this exciting episode and kick off with our long balls, we hit 500. Our fight to 500 was complete, and that's just the start. We need to come up with a new subscriber goal, but at Morning Kickaround's YouTube channel, we are beyond the 500 mark, so thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. Let's make this the first of many accomplished subscriber goals. Follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. All right, friend, let's get into it. Let's kick Wednesday's long balls. Let's kick it right off. Long ball number one for Wednesday, January 15th. Can you believe it? Midway through January. Yesterday, Jurgen Klopp introduced as Red Bull's head of soccer. And within that conversation, he was declared Dr. Football. What'd you make of Jurgen Klopp's introductory press conference, Jason?
Well, first of all, it was like an hour and a half long, so I can't pretend to have sat through the entire thing with Jurgen on a stage at Red Bull headquarters being feted, lots of journalists on hand, people watching online. You said he was declared Dr. Football. He declared himself Dr. Football. He gave that title to himself, which is certainly a move. Now, if you're wondering what the context was, look, obviously, as head of global soccer, global head of soccer, which is indeed the actual title, and there was a couple of minutes in the very beginning of this press conference, it's not a press conference, it's an introduction. So you've got a hand-picked host, and then you've got Jurgen Klopp, and then you have, I believe, Oliver Mintzlaff, who is head of everything, one of the big muckety-mucks, Red Bull's chief executive. That's what Oliver Mintzlaff is. And Oliver Mintzlaff is the guy who convinced Jurgen Klopp to take this job. So they're on the stage answering questions, hand-picked questions, nothing too hard-hitting. And Jurgen Klopp is, as head of soccer, had to answer the question, do you call it soccer or do you call it football, Jurgen? And he said, well, for me, it's football. But, in America, they call it soccer. It's fine. Oliver Mintzlaff talked about how he got on the phone with Alexander Seferin of UEFA And Alexander Seferin said, when he was told about Jurgen Klopp taking this job as head of soccer, he said, no, you call it football with me. Because Alexander Seferin is very precious about the words he uses for this game. It's football. It's not soccer. How dare you? Are we still doing this?
Yeah,
it's 2024, Rob. Are we still doing this?
The tiredest conversation in all of sports, probably, and especially in the soccer world, is who really cares? It's called multiple things in multiple places. No one's given the Italians grief about calling Gaucho or anything like that. So let's move beyond that. And why did he allow one of his most high-profile hires to be labeled the head of soccer if they had some sort of a stick in their rear about calling it that in the first place?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's actually interesting. I mean, they covered it, but I think what it indicates to me is that there is definitely a sense here at Red Bull that their expansion into markets that call it soccer is going to be the major driver of their growth in this game. That's my sense. That's just a guess, right? I'm just reading tea leaves based on the title they gave Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the Dr. Football thing, again, head of global or global head of soccer, whatever it is, he's got multiple clubs under his purview. He did take pains to point out that he will not manage any of these clubs, right? He said because it only naturally flows that we would all be wondering if there's a problem at Leipzig, if there's a problem at Salzburg, probably not Brazil, probably not Major League Soccer, but if there's a problem at some of these bigger clubs in Europe, maybe Jurgen Klopp steps in, saves the day, rides in on his white horse. Does he have a white horse? Rides in on whatever he rides in on and saves the day for Red Bull, for the club, for RB Leipzig or whatever. He said, I'm not doing that. Now, I think I believe him, but I think it's also interesting that he needs to say it. And then, of course, he's talking about the big picture and the number of clubs and his expertise and what he can bring. So he said when he went to Leipzig's win over Werder Bremen this weekend, I saw 47,000 supporters there, and 42,000 of them were supporting Leipzig. And I thought, do they not deserve good football? I know how the start was for the club, but I really feel they deserve it. In Salzburg, in New York, in Brazil, they deserve support and improvement. Football can give you positive vibes for a city and a region. I love that fact. Quote, a doctor doesn't differentiate when a patient is coming from a different city. A lawyer doesn't either. If you like, I am Dr. Football. I love helping wherever I can, where I can give my all. Dr. Football, Jurgen Klopp. What do you think?
He's never short on a quotable moment. I'll give him that. I mean, and go back to your point about putting the hard brakes on coaching a team. I'd say he is really good at protecting what he will or won't do. Yeah, riding in a Red Bull is accurate, but he is going into he's looking for a less pressure situation, and he's like, whoa. I'm not going back to being the man on the hot spot. He wants to have the 30,000-foot view, maybe kind of like chip in with some advice or, do press conferences and shake some hands and maybe throw in some 2 cents about maybe, what the pursuit or what the teams under the Red Bull umbrella should be doing or adjusting. But he definitely was pumping the brakes on coaching, and the way he's kind of interacting there, it seems like he is almost like maybe done with being a head coach. I think he's just completely gassed and just wants nothing to do with it.
Well, I don't think he's capable of
no half measures for him.
No. There's no second gear, third gear. If we're going to use a Red Bull reference, he talked about Max Verstappen and learning from him, but there's no like easing into it or slowing down a bit or being able to sort of be in the job but not go 100%. I mean, the man's famously a heavy metal guy. It's all about this super intense approach to the game and to his job. It's how he played, it's how he's managed, and yeah, it definitely feels like he's burned out on managing day to day. I don't know if it's fair, but this definitely feels like semi-retirement to me. It doesn't mean he can't be impactful. It doesn't mean he can't do something good in the job. But this is not what we celebrate football minds for, being the head of global soccer for a conglomerate like Red Bull who's got clubs on multiple continents, right? We celebrate managers who are there day in and day out, leading their team, setting the tactics, picking the squad, helping them win. I mean, how much ink has been spilled on what Arne Slot did against Nottingham Forest to get a goal from two substitutes. I mean, it's like he discovered the holy grail, Arne Slot, because he put on Diego Jota and Tsimikas and they combined for a goal. Oh, how great is Arne Slot? I mean, that's what we celebrate. We're not going to be like, oh, Jurgen Klopp. Look how good Leipzig is right now in any given moment. Look how good Salzburg is, or the Brazilian club, or New York Red Bulls. We're going to celebrate Jurgen Klopp for that? No, we're going to celebrate the teams or we'll talk about the managers on the field. And I guess at some point we'll mention Jurgen Klopp. At some point we'll mention his influence.
Like if all of a sudden every Red Bull team has a marked improvement over the next 3 years, maybe he'll get some kudos on that sort of thing. But,
and how likely is it that all the Red Bull teams are going to be good at the same time? How likely is that?
It seems hard because most of the time, like if someone or a player, goes on a hot run, they would kind of get either sold or moved to a higher level Red Bull team, right? So it'd probably be unlikely that all of them could have all the stars at the same time or all of them be in top form all at the same time. But we shall see. We shall see. But out of the limelight as far as coaching a specific team, but Jurgen Klopp on the job officially now as Red Bull head of soccer. Long ball number 2 here on Wednesday. A lot of Americans in action yesterday. Where do we want to start here? There's a few to choose from. Pulisic injured. Tyler Adams plays 90. Jedi Robinson gets 2 assists, but in a loss for your Fulham side. Where do you want to go with American midweek action?
I hate to be a downer, but the headline is that once again Christian Pulisic comes off injured. It looks like the same exact injury that kept him out for a couple of weeks the last time before he came back for the Supercopa in Saudi Arabia and helped Milan beat Inter. He just gets kicked in the calf, right? It's almost like he had a contusion. He had something going on there. He got kicked in it again, and it stopped working for him. And I think if it is the same injury, your hope is that it's not a long-term thing, that this is a couple of weeks again on the mend at most. And he came back a little bit earlier than I even think we thought he would in the last one. Mm-hmm. So perhaps it is precautionary. He recognized it. I'm wondering if he's being targeted. This is like.
So did you? Speaking of which, did you see the actual incident? Did you see that on replay of how he got hurt? So it definitely looks like a kick out, but it didn't look like the worst thing. I wasn't like horror show tackle by any means.
No, and it was the same thing last time, right? It's just he's got a player on his back. He's a step ahead. That player kind of kicks out to try to get the ball, but Christian's leg gets in the way, and now you got a calf connecting with the toe, basically, or the other way around, I guess, is the way to look at it. Milan ended up winning the game with Yunus Musa playing a nice role in it. I mean, I think the ball from Abraham to Leao is the story, but it was a good performance from Yunus Musa in relief. He came on in that game, so that's one American you can point to. And you mentioned other Americans. Weston McKennie played as a 10 for Juve in their draw. And
he's the ultimate Swiss pocket knife. I mean, didn't he play fullback the other day?
He plays everywhere, and it's so odd. It's almost like Thiago Motta's trying to see if there's a spot that he can't play in. It's like well, maybe I'm going to throw this at him. He won't be able to handle this, and then sure enough, Weston looks good and he does something great, and then it's like, well, he won't be able to handle this, and sure enough. He does it. He figures it out.
Going back to our American bias story, it's like, well, he couldn't play that 6th position I tried him in, so maybe we don't want him next year.
Right. Yeah, he can only play 5 positions. Get him out of here. Send him back to America. Maybe the Fire want to buy him. That was the story.
Yeah, Weston McKennie's lower third just says soccer player. It's not a position, nothing, just player.
No, he can't. You cannot pigeonhole him, and I think that's remarkable. One of the stars of the show, Kalulu scores the winner. And so he gets man of the match, the equalizer for Juve because they drew with Atalanta. But McKennie was very good in that game, and it's just sort of heartwarming to see him still do this every time out. Every time Motta asks him to do something different, he does it well. And I guess if you're Juve, we would love to beat Atalanta, but Atalanta's a very good team, still in the title hunt in Serie A. So I think you take that draw. And you say, all right, well, let's build towards that Champions League spot if you're Juve.
It comes at a tough time, the Pulisic injury, as Milan take on Juve Sunday. So another matchup of some American involvement between the Juventus and the Milan players of American
I'm
nationality.
gonna throw this in there from our man Nate. Can he play goalie? Let's see it. Let's see it, please. Thiago
Weston.
Motta, give him one shot, maybe a cup match or something. I don't know. Are they still alive in the Italian Cup? Like, give him one shot to play goalie, just so we can see how Weston McKennie does with the gloves on. Because I don't know if you should doubt him. All right, who else? What other American players should we talk about?
A notable one of the results of the round, Bournemouth probably should have beat Chelsea, but they end up getting a 2-2 draw. And Tyler Adams played the full 90 and got a pretty good rating. He was 0 for 3 on long balls, but did everything else pretty darn well.
Yeah, I know that from the game perspective, the result perspective, Chelsea fans are extremely upset that Mark Cucurella was not deemed to have been fouled, with a violent foul. I think it was David Brooks. Was that who it was?
Yeah.
For Bournemouth.
Yeah, they reviewed it and VAR recommended a red, and the ref said no, thank you, that's a yellow.
Yeah, it was wild. Chelsea fans are upset. Bournemouth probably still deserved to win the game despite that. They end up with the draw. Tyler Adams, he kind of gets, I'm not going to say lost, but I think it was the first goal for Chelsea, which was Nicholas Jackson playing in Cole Palmer. Felt like Tyler maybe wasn't great positionally in that moment. But, man, as long as he's playing and getting significant minutes, and Bournemouth is a pretty damn good team, I'm not going to be too upset about what we're witnessing right now with Tyler Adams.
The second goal for Bournemouth was an absolute rocket. Their attacking players for them, that was Semenyo, just an absolute cannon. Really impressive there. And I wanted to bring up your Fulham, Jason. Your Fulham totally could have gotten a result, but they seemingly tried to throw it away. Multiple.
You want to pick in my scab here?
We are. I am merely bringing up Fulham because Anthony Robinson, United States men's international players, did well, got 2 assists, but he did it for your team who kind of threw it away here.
Oh, kind of. Let's not pull punches.
Very much threw it away here.
Absolutely gave it away, and it was Andres Pereira who set up the first goal. It was Leno.
What did you learn on like your first week of soccer practice when you were like a tiny kid? What do you not do on the top of your own 18-yard box?
You don't play a square ball across your own 18-yard box. Maybe is that what you're saying? And
I know there's some things that don't apply when you're so good to be a pro and all that, but that one should still apply.
Yeah, I question Leno playing into Pereira in that moment.
That started it.
Back.
Yeah.
But if your argument is, well, Pereira's a talented midfielder, he should be able to handle that and make a good choice, and Leno is just doing what Marco Silva has instructed him to do, fine, whatever. Then put it on Pereira. But what about that third one where Bert Leno just again, like, what are we doing here? And I'll even look, those two are egregious. The second one is bad too. It's bad defending. the ball goes across Bassey's body and he somehow doesn't manage to get a foot on it. And although it takes 4 more passes for West Ham to score that goal, I'm still like, no, what are we doing here? Like, how do we lose the aerial duel, and then how does Bassey not clear it, and then how do we not find a way? I think there was a late runner, maybe a Wobie was late on the back post, mark the back post, mark the back post, mark the back post. Thank you, Rob. That was fun. Thank you.
Hey, this is merely an American Abroad segment. I didn't want to pick at your Fulham. I mean, Cottagers, do your thing, but we'll talk about the American aspect of it. Other American notes, Ricardo Pepi scored twice in a cup comeback win, so he continues to bag the goals.
Yeah, and there was a piece over at The Athletic / New York Times, Jeff Ruder and Greg O'Keefe, a full profile of Ricardo Pepi, his numbers, how they compare to people like Victor Gyökeres, who is the hottest striker in the world over the last year. And they compare favorably. Let's just say that. And again, this is he's playing in a second-tier league in Europe. It's worth pointing out. But
so harsh.
With the numbers that he's put up in the limited minutes he's had, and Peter Bosz is not, he's not hidden from this. So he hasn't played any games with Ricardo Pepi. He said, I have a very talented player in Ricardo Pepi, but I have a captain, and my first choice is Luke de Jong. And that's not going to change as long as de Jong is healthy. But it does create pressure for Pepi to play more because he keeps scoring every time he gets a chance. And it puts pressure on PSV Eindhoven to consider the offers that might be coming. And I don't know. Here's what I don't know yet. I think it's really hard to pin this down. What is Ricardo Pepi's best future club, next club? What's his best level? What's the level that will work for him? And obviously we as national team fans, Rob, are looking at this through a U.S. men's national team lens. Because if you take the entire striker pool for the U.S. men right now and you say, who's your best hope to do something to get ready for 2026, to score goals in that tournament, it's Ricardo Pepi. It's no there. You can talk about Fowler and Balogun, but he has not gotten up ahead of steam. Injuries have been a problem. He hasn't scored enough goals at Monaco to make me feel good about his future. Right? Josh Sargent, injuries, playing in the second division. Name somebody else. There's not really anybody else. It's Ricardo Pepi, and it feels like he's ready for the move. He's ready for the jump, the leap to the next level. What is that? Where is that? Are we like, oh well, put him in a mid-table club in England because he'll play, but the pressure will be limited, or put him in a team that's chasing a Champions League spot because the pressure will be good for him, but how many minutes will he get, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you know who needs a striker right now, Rob? You know who needs because Gabriel Jesus just went down with an ACL injury. Kai Havertz isn't the guy. You don't have any other real options up top if you are Mikel Arteta. Arsenal needs a striker. Are they going to go spend whatever it takes to get Victor Gyökeres out of Sporting? Or maybe they spend half that on Ricardo Pepi and give him an opportunity. I'm just saying.
That is a very ambitious proposition there, right, Mr. Davis.
And I admit it feels too big, right? But I don't know if that's fair to Ricardo Pepi, considering how he scores goals every time PSV puts him on the field.
I would say, like, what comes to mind with Ricardo Pepi is his balloon was pretty full there for a while. He gets the move to Augsburg. Balloon deflated thoroughly. And now this season, he's getting more and more time. He's scoring more and more goals. He's getting consistent. His balloon of confidence and form getting getting more and more inflated. Do we want him to maybe make another move without making himself the number one? In my mind, I think at least another full season where he continues to grow, impress, and score goals on the regular would be my choice. But
Where? Tell me
to
where.
To stay at PSV for at least one more year.
I know Bosch keeps talking about he's gotten more minutes this year than he did last year, and it's this slow growth thing. But man, I am impatient. I'm ready to see Ricardo Pepi start every week, because if he's scoring like this as a substitute, as a bench player, as a cup player for PSV Eindhoven, what could he do if you gave him 75, 85, 90 minutes every single match? I mean, we don't know, and that's the thing. We don't know until it happens, and I'm ready for it to happen, because I think what we've seen is he's already proven that he can do this in Holland, in the Eredivisie, with a top club as a substitute. Give the man, but I don't. At the same time, I don't want him to be in an Augsburg situation where the pressure is to stay up, and that creates a situation where a desperate manager turns to veterans because he doesn't trust a younger player. I think we're past that with Ricardo Pepi.
All right, if you're going to twist my arm and force a club name out of me, and just because I want to see more of them, and the Premier League is on our televisions like 3 days a week at least, just so we can see them, and a team who almost never has good luck with forwards and would welcome a free scoring forward, West Ham. I mean, I don't want to plague him, but they need a forward. They need a forward.
Bowen is hurt. Fulkrug is hurt. Mikel Antonio has a broken leg from a car crash. You're absolutely right. Maybe West Ham would be interesting. With new management, let's say new management.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a great point, because West Ham actually, I wouldn't have thought so, but West Ham is actually a pretty legit landing spot for Graham Potter, and he has a track record of, coaching up players that, don't have like some sparkling reputation. I mean, at Brighton, he did a great job of elevating that club, and he had a lasting impact where, multiple managers since, and that baseline level that he put there is reaping some rewards. And Graham Potter, he definitely, I don't know, I think if he sees some quality in him, I feel like he could give him a fair shake there at West Ham.
That is, I will accept that. I mean,
I wouldn't have said that like a week or two ago with the management change. It seems a lot of a better landing spot.
It does feel like something that might work out better with Potter rather than Lopetegui. The position of the club matters in the sense that it could be a factor in how much playing time he gets. But West Ham right now, despite the change, despite the struggles, is still clear enough. What are they? They're 10 points out, 10 points above the relegation zone. They should be okay. And if you are desperate. Now, the problem is, of course, if Bowen comes back healthy, when Fulkrug is back, when Antonio heals, I don't know how long that's supposed to be, then is Ricardo Pepi going to play in that scenario? Those are the big questions. Now, if he scores goals in the interim, it'll be tough to get him out of the lineup. And I guess that's what you're hoping for, right? That's what you're hoping for.
Yeah, definitely. And that falls into the, not too high in the table to where he doesn't get to play. And they're not in, super danger of, getting relegated. So they're not going to be doing like a whole, 10 men behind the ball thing. But we shall see. Ricardo Pepi still bagging in the goals. One more further note, Americans abroad, 18-year-old youth national team player, Makai Akin Boney on the Bournemouth bench. So another American, peeking their head out, maybe on our radars here soon.
I would also mention, I think we had an American score in the FA Cup yesterday. Charlie Kellman scored the goal for Leyton Orient that helped them equalize, and I think they won on penalties. Do I have that right? I'm trying to remember off the top of my. Anyway, Americans abroad. That's the list.
Well, that's great. I mean, Americans popping up that we weren't already tracking and scouring the earth for. Just have some density of Americans doing things abroad. Fantastic. That is long balls here for Wednesday morning. Hit the subscribe button. We crashed past the 500 mark, and let's keep on going. Let's keep the growth happening. Subscribe, like the Morning Kick Around. 2 words. Morning is a word. Kick Around, 1 word. Morning Kick Around on YouTube. Follow along social media at mkickaround and Gmail. Write a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Catch our breath, and we will be joined by Charlie Boehm here on Morning Kick Around as we attempt to answer the big question here on Wednesday. The big question is here. Wednesday morning, big news came in MLS circles as they've introduced MLS cash trades. So the big question for the day, what does the introduction of MLS cash for trades mean for the future of the league? And to help us understand this, we are very happy to welcome American soccer writer Charles Boehm to Morning Kick Around. Hello and good morning, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be on with you today.
Hi, Charlie. Hi.
Hey, Jason. How are you?
Nice to see you, buddy. Nice to see you.
Love what you're doing here, man.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that you're here for us. Rob, I think we just need to ask Charlie, right, to explain this thing for us.
Please.
Because I think we get the basics of you can buy players with cash in the league, but what does this mean, Charlie?
Listen, if you guys just read the 5-page single-space press release materials from the league, it's all very self-explanatory. A maximum of 4 hours, and you'll be fine. You'll know everything that I know about it. Don't worry. It almost teaches itself. No, I'm being tongue-in-cheek, as we often are, around the MLS ephemera, of the rule book and the complexities and quirks of the rules and regs. But actually here we can tell a slightly different story because we're going in the opposite direction from maybe the stereotypical norm for MLS rule books. Things are getting simpler. Like this is a new sort of pathway opening up that is simplifying things. It's allowing for a more basic cash transaction. And it's funny because we always stick MLS, right, thinking that there must be some kind of artificial or synthetic part of this process, but there's not. I mean, this is making things, I guess I would say, giving another option for clubs and really players. It increases the possibility for player movement. It's like most things with MLS, it's being sort of eased in gradually. So there's some guardrails put on it in the sense that things are limited. Clubs are limited to 2 inbound and 2 outbound cash trades under this new system. But that was the case with free agency, the MLS version of free agency when that opened up a few years ago, and many other aspects where there's a consensus has to be built in this league, the way it's structured and the way that things are discussed and evolved. But it's a positive step, I would say, on balance. And for that, you don't just need to talk to people around the league. Look at what the MLS Players Association is saying about it. They were involved in the negotiations. This was had a collective bargaining aspect to it because they had to sign off on it, and they released their own statement. Was it yesterday or the day before? That showed that this stands to benefit players as well. Players are going to get a cut of the fee involved in when they're moving to another club, and they feel like this is a way to increase flexibility and freedom for the players as well.
So at this point, I mean, again, like you said, this is simplified on some level with the introduction of two incoming, two outgoing. Do we have a sense of what the market actually looks like? What's the demand, right? The competition committee, they wouldn't have done this, and I did read 6 years it took before they eventually decided to put this through, but this wouldn't have happened unless there was some demand. Do we have a sense? I mean, I think we could all kind of reason out, well, that owner likes to spend and this owner doesn't. Is it as simple as that, Charlie?
Well, you accurately point out that we won't really know what this is going to look like until the rubber hits the road, in the sense of an actual player or set of players that are the first to go. So that is interesting. Tom Bogert, who of course has been on the bleeding edge of the reporting of this, as with most other things around the league and beyond, pointed out that two names immediately popped up for him in these kind of informal conversations about what this might look like. You have disgruntled star players in Cincinnati in the form of Lucho Acosta right now, and Evander in Portland. You could see this being an elegant solution for those situations where, typically up until now, a player of that value, you would almost have to see them leave the league entirely for all parties to get closest to what they ideally want. In this situation, you could imagine a club like Atlanta United, which is they're flush in real cash thanks to Arthur Blank's investment, and they're flush in allocation cash thanks to a bunch of the transfers and the intelligent wheeling and dealing that Garth Lagerwey and his staff have done. They could go out and they can get, in MLS terms at least, they can get almost anyone they want. They have the biggest wish list, the biggest ambition in terms of upgrading their squad. They've got designated player slots open, so they could just go and tell the Portland Timbers, what's it going to take to get your MVP caliber playmaker to come over here and join us. So that would be something on that scale. But I think there will also be more mundane transactions as the sort of sample size opens up, because this is an opportunity to solve roster problems also. Now, a player's roster designation can't change as part of a cash trade, and there's limits. You can't get into the deeply NBA-ish, I guess, salary cap manipulations yet, at least from what we can tell. But there's just a way for clubs that have assets to move them more easily, and clubs that have spending power can put it to work quickly and more sort of elegantly, efficiently.
You said that this was kind of in the works, in the pipeline for 6 years or so, but it's been publicly announced in the second week of January. Did the clubs know this was coming out? Like, was this always in the club's plans for 2025? Well,
as you mentioned, it's been talked about a long time. You could argue that it should have happened back in the summer, or could have happened a year ago. And I can think right away of some clubs and CSOs around the league who wish that this happened a week or two ago, because we're already forced to ask. For example, I'm in here in DC. DC United just ate a very costly, painful transaction to get designated player Mateusz Klich off their books just a week or so ago. He was shipped to Atlanta. He'll still occupy or eat up a designated player spot for DC United, but they were eager to get out from under his contract and get even a modicum of salary budget relief. So they're paying part of his salary and eating a DP tag for the season. And I haven't gotten to talk with Ali Mackay, their GM, yet, but I could imagine someone in his position being a little bit peeved that this rule wasn't put into official effect sooner. But you also have to believe that guys at that level, guys and girls at that level, know what's coming, right? The question is always what the sort of the machinery of the league, how quickly it processes it when the board level decisions are finally, stamped and sealed. So that, hopefully we'll get some reporting and some public statements. Some people will maybe pop off about that, but it hasn't happened yet. So I think the key thing here is technically the MLS transfer window, the primary window, the winter window hasn't opened yet. So this is happening before that's happened, even though we kind of perceive that we're well into the winter season, right? When we look at things globally, this is at least happening just as players are reporting to training camp. I've heard from more than one coach speaking this week that, right now we want to look at what we have in the opening days and weeks of preseason, and then we still have plenty of time with months left in the transfer window to go out and do the deals we think we need to. So again, the devil's in the details here when you look at the long tail that a big time transaction typically has, right? They can stretch over months or multiple transfer windows to get everything to the point of signing a deal and announcing it.
I want to go back, Charlie, to what you were talking about with the MLS Players Association. Obviously, for those of us who have been around long enough, we know it's not always been easy. Obviously, there's been labor negotiations and CBAs fairly recently, and we've had threats of lockouts and strikes and all those things. This has been the story of professional sports in America, but certainly with MLS. I mean, it feels like yesterday that Jimmy Conrad and the group that he was a part of figured out a way to get something that was kind of like free agency, and it was this massive breakthrough. And now we seem to be moving pretty quickly in ways that sort of undercut this idea of single entity and those things. But in terms of the Players Association, Charlie, you talked about the 10%. That's the global standard for a transfer when a player moves from one club to another, that the player receives 10%. I was surprised by that. I figured that they could toss this under the heading of single entity and say, well, you're not actually, your ITC is not moving, so the players don't get the 10%. And even outgoing transfers from MLS for a very long time, players didn't get 10%. What does it say about where we are on sort of that balance and sort of, again, the league's comfort with the solidity of single entity, that they can do things like this without worrying about what it means for that legal structure?
Well, right, there's something ironic about the fact that single entity is, you could argue it's worked and it's more entrenched than ever, but there's 30 distinct organizations within that single entity, and 30 clubs mean a wide and increasingly growing range of backgrounds and perspectives and kind of sensibilities about how things should operate and how they want to do things at the local level. So again, things with MLS, things tend to move in a very sort of measured way, for better and sometimes for worse. But the MLSPA has had what I would say in general is a more of a partnership mentality with the league, at least over the last couple decades, than many of its sporting counterparts in North American sports. So they've tried not to, we've had drawn out, difficult, contentious CBA negotiations, but there hasn't been a full-on meltdown in the sense that you've seen in the mainstream American sports. And I think they would probably say, the MLSPA, that you're seeing the benefits of that now, right? There's a measure of revenue sharing. We don't know if or when that'll be triggered, but it is built into the CBA. The league's owners and investors seem more comfortable with a bullish mentality that reflects that things are still growing. There is a bigger cake, and that the players are part of the group that gets to meet that out, because they're stakeholders in a sense, if not shareholders.
That's encouraging that that players are getting a little bit more of a slice that they would elsewhere in different leagues around the world. Question from the comment section coming from Mike Thomas: does the team receiving cash pocket that, or does it get converted to general allocation money?
Yeah. So again, I've got the press releases open here. I'm not going to crib back to it. My understanding of this is that these funds are treated the same way that an external transfer to a club outside the league would be handled. So up to a point, a chunk of it becomes converted into GAM, but then after that cap, then it's basically, you could use it to improve your physical infrastructure. It could go into the owner's pocket, but there's a limit, although that limit has steadily grown over the years. But that a limited chunk of it can go back in as a form of salary budget relief.
Charlie, I guess there is sort of this grain of a thought that comes up with this. Like, again, and the league has made incremental steps towards an open market, right? Again, adding free agency via labor negotiations, getting to a point now where there's a cash market for players. within the league. And we're tying this to GAM because GAM is such a big part of how clubs construct their rosters. But is there a reason to see this as the first step, or maybe a significant step, towards eliminating allocation money and turning this league into something that is just about pure dollars? I mean, I can't imagine the league will ever do away with a salary structure of some kind, a salary budget or cap, if you want to call it that. But is there a sense that moving away from these more arcane and bureaucratic notions of how to bring down your cap number is possible?
Well, yeah, and I should also mention here too, part of the answer, and something I don't want to get lost in all this, is the cash trades is one bullet point among almost half a dozen really that are sort of the way that the league is packaging these updates to the rules. So there's also more buyout possibilities, which it may seem limited that you can only buy out 2 guaranteed contracts per year, but that's from 1 to 2 is a 100% increase. So again, gradiated improvement there. Maybe account against the idea that allocation money is going to go away is that expiration dates have now been taken off of GAM. It used to be you had a limited number of transfer windows. You had 3 full transfer windows in which you had to use it. That was seen as somewhat of an arbitrary restriction that was, limiting the full sort of palette of options that clubs and their management had. So that's a gradual shift. The rules around homegrowns and how like second team players are brought up have been opened up, which I'm hoping is a good thing in terms of like how the league approaches the U.S. Open Cup, among other cup competitions outside of league play. There's fewer limitations on how homegrown players and young players coming up from the second team can be utilized before the club is required to offer them a first team contract. So this is sort of a wider thing, but I'm a little more bearish on the idea that GAM and TAM and that sort of thing TAM I think its days are more numbered, but allocation money has a benefit in the sense that it's sort of, I think there's a perception at least that there's a significant number of sort of what I consider Moneyball or Moneyball adjacent clubs in the league who look around at all these big spenders and see a lot of waste, right? And see a lot of possibility for identifying undervalued assets in the shadow of the Atlantas or the Miamis. And for them, there's a little bit of gamesmanship here. They feel like they can outthink wealthier competition by sort of manipulating and managing these sort of various MLS quirks and details. And so I think that's a significant voting block that you're going to have to deal with if you're going to get to a point of consensus at the board level, because people, CSOs see that as just the same way with the draft, right? Some teams absolutely punt the draft now gleefully, and others lean that much further into their investments in getting value from the draft because they see others overlooking it. So I think there's always going to be that spectrum there, which honestly makes the league more interesting, I would say, because it's just another reflection of the different ways of thinking.
I was just going to ask, like, from your position as an American soccer writer covering largely Major League Soccer, is this something that excites you and gives you more meat on the bones for your writing and your readers?
Short answer, yes. I think there's a nuance in that I'm right in the middle on this, right? Because I see both sides of the wider debate about how MLS works, right? I understand that people get frustrated with what's seen as overly cautious mindset, sort of this very measured growth mindset, whereas you can't argue with the effect that it had. A league that started, we're in year 30 now, right, with survival as the prime goal, right? A lot of these MLS quirks have worked as intended and do create a different competition from what we see around the world, maybe in big leagues in Europe, for example, where we're running up against the limitations of their ethos in terms of competitive balance. And, how interesting is the Bundesliga if Bayern wins 9 out of 10 years? And MLS is sort of at the opposite extreme, some would say. But there's so much that goes into that. And it even includes these this inside baseball type stuff, for lack of a better metaphor, that a lot of casual fans get mystified by. But this is all exists to try and create a sense of balance and also a sense of continuity and collective purpose off the pitch, outside of the competitive environment.
Thank you so much for spending time with us, Charles, letting us know about this new MLS Cash for Trades. Let the viewers know where they could find your reporting.
Yeah, so most of my work is on MLSsoccer.com these days. I'm sort of in the general migration away from Twitter and spending more of my time and more of my energy on Blue Sky, trying to get more into the other social media there. But check at CBOEHM on Blue Sky or MLSsoccer.com.
Thank you so much. A whole new era for Major League Soccer. Thank you so much. Everyone check out Charles' stuff online. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kick Around.
Cheers, guys.
All right. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe button on Morning Kick Around's YouTube channel and hit us up on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. We're going to catch our breath and go into another segment of Culture Wars here on Morning Kick Around. Culture Wars here, another segment of Culture Wars. There's a lot going on in American soccer, including a new league debuting in 2025. It's called League for Clubs. We're going to find out what it is and why it has been created. To answer that question, we are happy to be joined by one of the founders, Mr. Dennis Crowley. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dennis.
Hey, how you guys doing? Good to see you.
Appreciate you making some time, Dennis. Yeah, go ahead, Rob. Sorry, I'm stepping on you. I want to say hi, too.
Well, fair enough. Jason, you're here too, right? All right. Dennis, you are founder of one of the 4 founding clubs, Kingston Stockade of the League for Clubs. I guess let's start it off. What is the League for Clubs?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of us that have been playing in the NPSL for a number of years. I think we're all running great clubs, community-driven clubs, big supporter groups, good brands, good ownership groups. And, we just weren't getting what we needed out of the NPSL. So we decided, hey, let's go and let's start another league. And let's try to bring in the clubs that we love playing with, the clubs that we respect. Let's try to build something that has a little bit of maybe a bigger vision, a bit more inclusive for folks. And really just, build a platform for people that can appreciate trying to build infrastructure in American soccer, right? I think, we don't just look at ourselves as club owners. We're builders, we're entrepreneurs, but we're building things in the American soccer infrastructure. And what we felt like we needed was a much more stronger and much more stable platform to build upon. And so we said, hey, let's just start our own league. And in doing so, we partnered with the folks from the WPSL so we can leverage some of their infrastructure and some of their procedures. And we're actually having a lot of success so far.
I mean, it's certainly fascinating. I mean, with the story of American soccer, Dennis, and I know I don't need to tell you this, having owned a club and certainly been very involved in sort of thinking about how we organize and what our future is and, whether we can integrate our leagues and do pro rel and all those things. Yeah. But the story of American soccer is new leagues happen every so often. Somebody says, I have a better mousetrap. And I'm not trying to diminish. I think absolutely what you're doing is incredible. But I guess people who maybe are a little cynical about the history of American soccer would wonder why another league? What is it? Now, you kind of laid it out there, but what would you say to somebody who says, eventually we kind of have to stop adding more leagues and just figure out a way to connect all these dots?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really long, kind of complicated conversation. But I think what really what you want is like just a stable platform with good leadership and a strong vision that's open to hearing voices from people all over the country, right? And so we all joined the NPSL thinking that's what we were doing and that's what we were building, and that changed. And so we said, okay, well, what do? We either run and join other leagues, which is fine, but it felt like conceding a little bit. We said, okay, we can try to build something new. And so I can get it from the outsider's perspective. It's a lot to follow. There's no shortage of drama in lower level soccer. I think the ideal situation would be the there's some guidance from the federation about like how all this stuff is going to go together. But in the absence of that guidance, like, hey, you're down in the lower levels trying to create the perfect platform and the most stable platform that you can do. And I feel like that's the work that we're trying to do.
I guess what is the one thing that you could pick out that you are differentiating yourselves from the different amateur leagues that play in the spring and summer?
I think it's really just like the company that you keep, right? Like we're really not going to be that much different from, a schedule point of view or like a structure point of view from, say, some of the other leagues. But I think, if you look at the group that came together to put this, to start the league and put it together, it's a group of individuals that had big dreams and aspirations and visions for what, like, the NPSL, for example, could have been. And we were not able to execute those things as part of that league. And so we said, let's do it on our own. What are those things? Well, let's try to have products for all different types of clubs that want to run all different types of seasons, right? Let's do partnerships with, with some of these really strong regional leagues, right? They don't have to be entirely absorbed, right? They can be feeder systems into ours, right? We don't have to acquire them. We can partner with them. Let's try to use that structure to implement promotion relegation for regional leagues, right? Let's try to create a national footprint, but do so in a way that you can have as many teams as possible, so that travel is really tight. It's the same story we've been telling for years, right? I remember, like, we at a NPSL board meeting back in like 2019, Sonny from Tulsa and we stood up and it was like, what if, just imagine, like, this league wasn't 80 teams, but it was, 200, 300, 500. What would that look like, and what would you do? And that's kind of the vision that we had for, if you could build a place where everyone wanted to go and everyone wanted to play, like, then you could just do whatever everyone wanted to do. You could create any structure you needed, but you had to build something interesting enough that everyone wanted to join. And that is the thing that we were not able to do. And so I feel like what we're trying to do is take those same ideas, that same vision, that same passion, and just apply it to a new platform. And just say, okay, the same ideas, kind of the same cast of characters, but this is the place that we're going to do it now because we weren't able to make it happen in our old spot.
I'm certainly encouraged by people like you and people like Sonny and your founding clubs and everybody else that's involved here. And we kind of have the maps from your website. It's really tough to see the team names, but you can kind of tell where you guys are located right now with some of the clubs that have joined up. But I talk all the time, Dennis, about how the history of soccer in this country is built on a league-first mentality. Somebody has a business idea, they start a league, and then they go, let's put a team in that city, or let's put a team in that city. It's a franchise model. It really is. And we obviously have people like you who are operating clubs, that obviously aren't in big metropolitan areas, who aren't trying to bring in millions and billions of dollars of revenue, where the notion should be serve the clubs. The clubs should be the instigators, the force behind this. I do appreciate that. And I just, I don't know if I have a question here. I just want to acknowledge that my theory about why we are where we are at the professional level especially is built on that idea that leagues come before clubs. And I know that you're working at an amateur level, but this is nice to see the other way around.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here too, right? Like, we always used to think of it as like the leagues are just containers for clubs, right? Like, really, no one should be like a fan of the league. Like, you're a fan of the clubs that are in the league, and then therefore you like that league. It's almost like you've got to remove the ego from the league itself, and there's no shortage of like just ego in lower level soccer. It's kind of the problem, right? Like, ego and aspiration and just short-sightedness, right? So it's like, listen, just make a platform, make it be the platform that people want to play for and bring people in. And one thing I want to call out is, you use the term franchise. Like, we're not a franchise model, right? It's you're a member of the league. And to be honest, that's one of the things that we really loved about the NPSL back in the day, is that, hey, you're a voting member. Everyone has a say in this. Over time, that became less true of the NPSL. And so we're thinking, okay, well, how do you take that ethos, that member-driven ethos, and put it into something, something new? And that's kind of like the philosophy that we started with. It's also worth noting that, like, when we, we're all former NPSL clubs. When we left, sometimes the logical choice is, oh, will you join the USL, right? But a lot of our clubs were blocked because of the franchise rules.
Right.
Like,
yeah, the right.
There's another club in the Hudson Valley. There's other clubs in parts of the country. Like, you don't have another option. So it's like, well, we need a place to play. Let's make the place where we want to play. Right? Like, it's like, build the league that you want to play in. And if you make that league great, then other people will want to come in and play. And that's just what we're trying to do.
So, one thing I also talk about a lot is that, one of the reasons people talk, like, we want to have this integrated pyramid. We want there to be promotion and relegation in America. We want to do what we see in other countries, particularly in Europe. That's the model. Everybody dreams of that. But part of the problem we have is that culturally we don't all pull in the same direction, and there's not enough sort of successful history behind us to hold people into the structures so that clubs aren't saying, I don't like this, I'm leaving, right? Because if that's an option and suddenly somebody disagrees with the direction of the league, as you did with the NPSL, then what's holding this all together except your word? And I know contracts are part of it too, Dennis, but so I guess I would ask you, like, how do you guard against the League for Clubs becoming the NPSL, in the sense that clubs might not love the direction of the league at one point and decide they're taking our ball and playing somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, it's a leap of faith. I think it comes to like I was saying earlier, it's like the company that you keep. The league is going to succeed or fail depending on the types of people that we bring in. Like, are they high quality, high integrity people? And are those people allowed to be in leadership roles? And are those people allowed to succeed in those roles? And if they are not able to succeed, are they held accountable? And then do they be removed and someone else is added in? Right. Just like, I mean, a lot of this is like running a business. Like, I'm a startup person. I've run businesses. You hire people, you hold them accountable. Right. That's just what you do. Like, people get put into roles, they do a job or they don't do their job. You're held accountable. They have reviews, you move on. And like that wasn't happening where we were previously. And so let's make a system where we can do that. And so, like, in terms of pitching clubs, hey, you should join our league. Like, you really just have to kind of trust us and go along for the ride. But you also look at the quality of clubs that we're able to bring in. Like, we haven't even kicked the ball yet, right? We haven't kicked a ball until May. And I think there's a lot that will change after our first season once people say, like, oh, this is a real thing. Like, these are some good teams. This is a really interesting story. There's a lot of momentum here. If when we put this together, like, gosh, can we get 20 clubs? Like, that was one of the things we were, like, one of our North Stars. Like, if we get 20 clubs across a couple different parts of the country, this could really come together. Like, we might see 50 clubs by the time we kick off our season a couple months from now. Like, I was on a call with these guys yesterday, and the numbers are in flux, but like, we're looking, it's probably gonna be somewhere between 40 and 50, and that's a pretty good start for year one. And that's like before you even kick the ball. And that's, I think, people seeing the story that we're telling and kind of comparing it to the other stories that are out there and being like, well, I mean, I'm going to put my chips on this league and this is where I'm going to do the building. And that's exactly what we want. Like, we want to be that platform that people feel comfortable building on top of, bringing their clubs to, being like, I want to park my club here for a number of years, and this is what we're going to do.
This story, there's more to be written, obviously, until before the ball kicks off in May. But as you stand here now with us here on Morning Kick Around, what does a successful year one for League for Clubs look like?
It's a great question. It's one we should have a call about when on our board meetings here. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking it's like, if you don't hear any drama about the league, that is successful. Like, the kiss of death for any of this stuff is, clubs that aren't sustainable, clubs that run out of money. We have to do our diligence as kind of the shapers and the founders of the league to make sure that we have the right founding clubs in there to make sure that everything's going to go well year one. And I think year one is the hardest year to get through. Just like when you're starting a club, year one is the hardest year. Like, nobody knows if they're going to show up. Nobody knows if the team's any good. Nobody. It's hard to get the sponsors because they haven't seen anything. There's no photos of anyone playing in the. But I think once we get through this year, and all signs showing that, like, hey, there's a lot of momentum here. We're adding new clubs regularly. There's a lot of excitement, and like, like we all know what we're doing because we've been doing it for a decade. I think we'll be in a pretty good spot by the end of the season.
That's exciting times for viewers and clubs interested to know more. What's like the central spot to send folks for information on the League for Clubs?
Yeah, the website is theleaguefc.com. And from there, you'll find all the info on, how to join. You can follow the social media handles, find information about the clubs and the conferences and the alignment and stuff. I saw that you were showing the photo there. It's a little small to see, but yeah, it's just theleaguefc.com.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for sharing time with us and telling us about the League for Clubs. And thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kick Around, trying to cover all the levels of soccer across the world and here at home in the United States. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. We'd love to come back sometime and tell you about how we're doing. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Sure thing.
Let's check in.
All right, see you guys. Be good.
All right, so that is our show for today. What an action-packed show we had, Jason.
That was fantastic. Loved it. We let other people talk, and the show gets better. Wait a second. All right.
So we blasted past 500 subscribers on YouTube. You can be the next. Hit subscribe at Morning Kick Around on YouTube, and you can follow along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Whoo-wee! That was a fun one, Jason. You got anything cooking the rest of the day?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to have to read up on the League for Clubs and learn more about cash player trades in Major League Soccer. And I think there's some soccer happening in Europe. I think they got a couple of things going on over there. I might be checking in on that. We'll see how it goes. Arsenal's doing a thing against who? Tottenham Hotspur. I'll watch that game.
Yeah, we'll see when we come back to you on Friday. We'll see if Nottingham Forest is still in second place in England. And then we'll also check in on
no editorializing from our production staff. Thank you very much. That's
producer Jenny. Thank you for your contributions to the show once again, and then throwing in a couple 2 cents here on our final kicks. But and we'll also be checking in on Friday with the NASL versus USSF and MLS lawsuit. Lots going on there too. So until Friday, everybody, enjoy your soccer.